Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my September 2015 wrap up. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that for a while I was attempting to do weekly wrap ups. Unfortunately I just found that kind of really hard to keep up with. And so I've decided instead, due to the volume that I do generally read, to try and do a mid-month wrap-up and then another wrap-up at the end of the month. I didn't do that in September, you may have noticed, as I only read 8 books in September, which makes it the worst reading month that I've had so far this year. But I actually read a couple of books that were really chunky in September, so I'm still pretty happy with how much I read. So let's just jump straight in and I'll tell you about all the books that I read in September. The first book that I completed in September was Mad Apple by Christina Meldrum. It's quite hard to explain what this book is about, but I'll try. This book is about a main character who lived with her mother in isolation for basically most of her life. And then when she's around 16, her mother dies and she goes to live with some other people, kind of. It's hard to explain kind of how she gets there. She also doesn't understand or know about who her father is, and it's all very confusing, and that's all I can really say about what it's about without giving anything away, I think. This book was very hit and miss for me. It dealt with some really important topics, which I thought was good, but I don't think it was executed anywhere near as well as it could have been. This book also had some really heavily descriptive parts surrounding botany and religion, and they were just kind of really hard to get through. They really slowed down the pace of the story and made the story like a bit of a slog. This book also left me at the end with a lot of unanswered questions, which I really just didn't like. So overall, I just don't think this book was for me, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book that I read in September was Academy Girls by Nora Carroll. This was a book that I was approved for on NetGalley, so thank you to Lake Union Publishing and NetGalley for approving me to read this one. This is an adult fiction book which surrounds a main character, Jane Milton, who is returning to the boarding school at which she got her education when she was younger. She is returning to be a teacher, and we kind of get dual perspectives between her time as a teacher and her time when she was a student, and she's kind of got some secrets and things that went on when she was younger and some mysterious aspects of things that are going on now, and we just kind of followed that story. So this book is set in a boarding school, as I mentioned, so basically I was already really happy when I started reading it, because as I've mentioned several times on this channel, boarding school are basically my favourite setting for any book ever. I really enjoyed Nora Carroll's writing, and I found the story to be really engrossing, and it kind of held my interest throughout. I also enjoyed the characters. I thought they all had a lot of depth, which I really appreciated. I did have a couple of problems with there being a few too many coincidences and a couple of things that just didn't quite make sense to me, but I did still really enjoy the story. Overall, I just thought this was a well-written, engrossing read that I would definitely recommend, and I ended up giving this one 3.75 stars. The next book that I read in September was She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. This book surrounds a main character, Dolores, who it's kind of hard to explain what this is about. It's kind of a coming of age story, I guess. It follows her from a young age all the way up through to her adulthood, and just kind of follows her life and all the hardships kind of that she endures. I really didn't enjoy this book. I just found it to be thoroughly depressing. And I can appreciate a book about a character that's had, quite frankly, a crap life, but the book just didn't seem to have any deeper message to me that would make me kind of appreciate all the really depressing content that it had in it. That's not to say this book doesn't have a deeper message, just that I personally didn't get it. So I just really didn't enjoy this, and again, I ended up giving this one 2 stars. The next book I read in September was The Unidentified by Ray Moriz. I was really excited going into this, as the plot to me sounds extremely interesting. This is, I guess, a dystopian book about a world where the high school, has been taken over by corporate sponsors, and it's basically become a game where you have to play your way through the levels, I guess being your years of high school, and it's run by corporate sponsors, and I just found that to be a really interesting concept. This book dealt with some really interesting topics and themes, and as I said, I found the concept really interesting. I did, however, feel like more time could have been spent on like the world building and explaining the concept of this game and how it worked, because I really felt like that was just really brushed over, as this book is really short, and therefore I just didn't get parts of it and how it worked. I did enjoy a lot of like smaller little aspects of the story, like the fact that they say, "Oh my Google," like instead of "Oh my God," and things like that. I found that really interesting, and I thought it added a lot to the story. The ending of this book is definitely what killed it for me, though. I felt like the story had just kind of got going, and then it just ends really abruptly and with a lot of unanswered questions, and I really don't like when that happens. So overall, I was just really kind of disappointed, and I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. The next book that I read in September was Finding It by Leah Marie Brown. This is another book that I was approved for on NetGalley, so thank you to Kensington Books and NetGalley for approving me to read this one. This is actually the sequel, a second book in a series to Faking It by Leah Marie Brown, which I actually read back in June. This is just a really kind of happy-go-lucky series of books that follows a main character at the moment. Her name is Vivia, and it's just, the first book followed her. She's just been dumped by her fiance, and he's caused her to lose her job, and so she decides with her best friend to go on the honeymoon that they had planned, which is a cycling tour of South France. And I really enjoyed that book, and this is kind of just follows on from where that book left off. I actually enjoyed this book even more than I did the first one. I'm not sure if that's just because I kind of knew what to expect going in, but in any event, I really enjoyed this book. Leah Marie Brown just writes humor extremely well. I really enjoy my reading experience when reading these books, and I just find them to be really funny and just a good time. I do have a couple of small problems with the story, but overall I just really enjoy it. And I do know that the author, she actually commented back to me on my review, which I just really appreciate, and she let me know that there is another book coming out which will follow Vivia's best friend, and I'm really excited to read that story because I just can't wait to hear her story as well. And like I said, I just really enjoyed this book, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read in September was Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. This story is, I don't want to butcher the synopsis, so I'm just going to read you the first sentence of the synopsis, and that will give you a bit of an idea of what it's about. I was born twice. First as a baby girl on a remarkably smogless Detroit day of January 1960, and then again as a teenage boy in an emergency room near Petitsky, Michigan in August of 1974. So as you can tell from that small snippet of the synopsis, this book follows someone who was raised as a girl until well into their teenage years, when they discover that they are in fact a hermaphrodite. You may recall DNF'd, a book by Jeffrey Eugenides earlier this year, which was The Virgin Suicides, but I had been interested in reading this book before that, and I'd read in some reviews of The Virgin Suicides that Middlesex was a much better book than The Virgin Suicides, and so I decided to still give this a go. I picked this up in order to complete the challenge of reading a Pulitzer Prize winning book, as this book is a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and I really did end up enjoying it. While this book is, for lack of a better term, a little long-winded, it is well over 500 pages, I did still really enjoy reading it. I enjoy books that follow people's complicated family histories, as this one does, as this book does go back in time and kind of show us her family history from her grandparents all the way up through her parents and then into her life growing up. I do obviously feel like the book could have been shorter, as it was very long, but I felt the writing was great and I did enjoy it. I was emotionally connected to the story. I cried a bit at the end. I did really enjoy it. I would definitely recommend picking this up. As I said, if you have read maybe some of Jeffrey Eugenides' other works and you didn't enjoy them, still pick this one up, because as I said, I didn't enjoy his other book, but I did still really enjoy this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read in September was Touch by Francine Prose. This book follows a girl who is dealing with the aftermath of an incident on the back of a school bus. We're not really sure exactly what happened in the incident and whether it did happen, it didn't happen, and it just kind of follows that story. Unfortunately, this book fell kind of flat for me. It jumps around in time perspectives a lot, from all different kind of time perspectives, and I found that to be quite confusing, and it really just takes me out of the story when there are too many time jumps, and not just between kind of past and present, but different points in the past and present. It's just I find that really confusing. I also really didn't enjoy the main character of Maisie. I feel like she was supposed to be an unreliable narrator, but it just didn't really work. It wasn't well executed. I also felt like her character could have been much further developed than what she ended up being, and overall I just found this story to be quite disappointing, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. The final book I read in September was Darkest Dawn by Caitlin Duncan. This is another book that I was approved for on NetGalley, so thank you to Karina UK and NetGalley for approving me to read this one. This is a YA novel that follows 2 main characters. First we have Sloane, whose mother died, I think it was 11 years previously, in a car accident, and she thinks there's more to the story, and she's kind of being lured to this small town to find out more details about what happened to her mother. When she gets to the town, she discovers that there is another girl in town called Bree, who is our other main character, who looks identical to her, and they're not sure exactly what's going on, and we're just kind of following that story. I enjoyed this book. I was intrigued right from the beginning, and I was really looking forward to like diving in and finding out exactly what was going on. I enjoyed the main characters of Bree and Sloane a lot. I thought they really complemented each other as main characters, and I enjoyed reading both of their perspectives, which was good. While I did enjoy the book, I found the last portion of the book to be very confusing. There was just a lot going on, and I wasn't sure exactly what was happening, and I had a lot of unanswered questions. I do believe this is the first book in a series. However, I do still wish that there hadn't been so many unanswered questions at the end of this book. I would prefer to maybe just have 1 or 2 threads kind of still to pick up in a sequel, and not just have this whole kind of a lot of questions still to deal with. I did still really enjoy the book, and I will definitely pick up the sequel when it comes out, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. So those are all the 8 books that I read in September. As you can probably tell, I had a bit of an up and down reading month. I had a couple of 4-star reads, but I had quite a few 2.5-star reads as well. I did still enjoy my reading month in September, as I always enjoy my reading months. I think my favorite book I read this month would have to be Finding It by Leah Marie Brown. It was just a really lighthearted read that I just really enjoyed. What was your guys' favorite book you read in September? I would love to know. Please comment down below if you've read any of these books, or what your favorite book was, or just let's get chatting down below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you want to see more. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye guys.